Hey Luke, do you like the DCEU?
I mean, who doesn't?
Well, guess what? We no longer have the DCEU. Now we have the DCU, because they're revamping it or something. And I believe I'm right in saying is Aquaman like the final, like that's it? It's their last hurrah,
What
Aquaman 2.
you mean? Is it their last movie?
Yeah, for like the
Yeah,
DCEU.
yeah. It is the last movie in the DCEU. Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be sad to see it go. But are we excited about it? Do we think it's gonna do well?
I thought you were going to talk about the fact because you brought up Aquaman. I thought you were going to talk about the fact that it has been so long since the movie was announced, and of course they filmed it and it's been in production and everything, and we still don't have a trailer when we are only 100 days out.
Yeah.
But by the time this recording comes out of our review of Tiptoes, hopefully a trailer will be out. Again, this is the last, the last DCEU movie, like you said, and it has not tested well. Apparently, Aquaman.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I think Warner Brothers are going to take a massive hit. Probably not as much as the Flash, but yeah, nobody
But
wants
what
this
about
movie.
Blue Beetle?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, Blue Beetle didn't have that big a budget. I think Aquaman probably will.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's gonna just this is gonna flop because nobody's gonna care. Nobody really cares about Aquaman, and it's the last movie in this universe, and it's not going to be very very good. And it's had no promotional material released up until now, which is crazy. So yeah, ain't looking good for Aquaman 2, The
Yeah,
Lost
honestly, at this
Kingdom.
point, it would be kind of annoying if they just made like a masterpiece. It's like like they make a masterpiece, just like, well, I mean, it's no good
No,
now.
well
Should have
that's
done
not
that earlier.
that's the thing. It's not happening because of the reason why it's been. Or the reason why I think nothing's come out about it is because they're constantly like reshooting or restitching the film together
Yeah.
behind the scenes. So yeah, Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, not looking good. What a shame.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Luke. And this week, we are celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the movie Tiptoes. So, Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Tiptoes?
Sure, Michael. So tiptoes, it's when you stand and like on your toes to
Yes.
make yourself a bit taller.
Yeah, which of course makes sense because, some people in this movie had to make themselves seem taller than they actually are.
I think you mean shorter.
Oh, damn it. I watched the wrong movie.
Oh no, yeah, I did think about that halfway through the movie. I was like, wait, why is this called Tiptoes? Because it's like the opposite. It's like
Yeah.
Gary Oldman has to make himself shorter. Indeed, Matthew McConaughey is he meant to be on tiptoes? Is that the point of the movie?
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. The meaning of it being that the name itself doesn't mean anything.
Like, does he actually think he is a dwarf?
Yeah.
But he's just like on tiptoes. Like he looks at himself in the mirror and think like because he does shout at one point, "I'm a dwarf."
Yeah. Also, I suppose like there's a thing about like if you're on tiptoes, it's kind of like you're on edge. Is that like a thing? Or you have to like tiptoe around things? So maybe it's like about how metaphorically they have to tiptoe around the issue of his family being dwarves.
Well, he does. He doesn't have to.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, yeah. Sorry, yeah. He feels the need to.
Yeah. I guess so. But he does. I want. Yeah, I mean, he kind of tiptoes around and then, like, she just finds out quite quickly. So it's not something that happens throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, whatever. Let's get into Tiptoes, Michael. Let's get into the plot later. First, of course, we got to talk about the creation of this movie. So it's a 2003 movie. It's its 20-year anniversary. Of course it is. And it's an American comedy drama film written and directed by Matthew Bright in what is, as of 2023, his last film.
Yes, I actually did know that because I was interested in whether he made any other films. I was like, who is this by like a serious director? Because sometimes when you see like an insanely bad movie, you just think, who directed this? And sometimes it's like somebody who's actually made like good movies before. And you're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
But no, in this case, as far as I can tell, I didn't recognize any of his movies. And yeah, he gave up.
Yeah.
Bless him.
It's the same thing as Gigli.
Oh, yes.
If you remember that director, another 2003 classic, Gigli, also called one of the worst movies ever made. And that director never worked again. Can you remember what he was called?
God, no. But I think I'm right in saying he had made some good movies before.
Yes.
But yes, I can't remember what it was called.
Of course, it was the one and only Martin Brest.
Yes, Martin Brest.
Who made
Good
Sense
name.
of a Woman.
Yes. And that is a good movie, yes.
Yes, even better than Tiptoes.
Yes.
So that's the thing. This guy, this was his big shot, and it didn't go so well, Matthew Bright. So yeah, honestly, that's a shame. It says he's a former film director on his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that's not
yeah.
something you want to see.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Yeah. Anyway, so Matthew Bright was the creator of this movie. He directed it. He wrote it. The movie stars Gary Oldman. Wait, was he in this movie?
Wow.
I don't remember seeing Gary Oldman in this movie, Michael. Can you help me? What character would he have been?
Oh well, obviously he would have been. He was Matthew Broderick's brother, which of course makes sense because Matthew Broderick's a normal sized person.
You're such a fucking Matthew Broderick, eh?
Oh, Matthew Broderick and Matthew McConaughey. They're the same person.
Yeah, no, they are so similar. Yeah,
they both have like Matthew and an O sound in their name. But you know, my joke was going to be it's Matthew McConaughey's brother, so of course that makes sense because Gary Oldman is a typically heighted person, and so is Matthew McConaughey, so it makes sense that they would play brothers.
Yeah, but of course Gary Oldman, if he were to be in this movie, since of course Matthew McConaughey has a brother who's a dwarf, Gary Oldman would have to be playing a dwarf, and of course Gary Oldman is not a dwarf.
Yes, that is.
It would be incredibly offensive if Gary Oldman just played his character walking around on his knees like you used to do as a kid when you were being stupid and making fun of
and you do the thing where you put like the shoes on your knees.
Yeah,
I love that.
That would be very offensive to do in a multi-million-dollar movie.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? And I was thinking about, the question of why.
We'll get into that later.
We'll get into why, okay, because I have a thought on why.
Okay, but I have thoughts as well. Again, we'll get into it later. So it also stars Kate Beckinsale in her best performance. Patricia Arquette in her best performance. Matthew McConaughey. This was before Matthew McConaughey became a good actor. This was back in those days. And then we have Peter Dinklage, of course.
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, he's still, it's incredible how much he's been around, Peter Dinklage. He was this is 2003. People forget, before Game of Thrones, he was an actor, Yeah,
exactly,
Yeah, he appeared in an episode of 30 Rock as well.
Yes.
Have you seen that episode?
No.
Okay, why did you say yes like that then?
Because I know that he was in it.
Oh, good. Well, that's great.
I just haven't seen any of them.
So he dates Tina Fey, but only for a short while.
Short while.
There we go. No, the thing is, she thinks he's a kid at first, and then he's offended by it, and then they start talking, and she finds him attractive. So he works at the UN, I believe, and then after that, obviously some shenanigans happened. Like she can't get past the fact that he's small. Yes. And then, she says to him, meet me on the bridge at the Brooklyn Bridge, probably at 1 p.m. tomorrow, if you still want to go out. And then, Tina Fey goes to the Brooklyn Bridge and she sees Peter Dinklage and she walks up to him, taps him on the shoulder, but it's actually a child. She's mistaken, and Peter Dinklage then comes around into view and is like, oh, so you thought I was a kid, did you? Yeah, this isn't going to work.
Yes.
It's quite a funny moment. But anyway... No, I can tell. You find that hilarious, right?
Well, I do think actually, it is a good bit of reincorporation. I mean, obviously, I feel like basically it's kind of to this film's detriment, just to touch on the whole casting thing again, that
we've got to wait till later.
Made when Peter Dinklage was more established as an actor.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I think his first serious film was The Station Agent, that the first film where everyone's like, oh, Peter Dinklage is a good actor, and that came out in 2003. I think that was because I guess at this point he must have had some credibility as well, if we're going to have a serious character who's a dwarf, it's got to be Peter Dinklage.
He should have been in Lord of the Rings in some aspect, right? Honestly. Should have been a dwarf.
Well, have you heard someone I think it was a 4chan thing, basically saying that Peter Dinklage is very critical of the whole dwarves being cast as fantasy creatures or as comic relief. And
but they're different kind of dwarves.
Someone was saying because he's the only serious kind of actor who doesn't have that association. Basically, they're saying he's pretty much locked out the industry for all the other dwarves. So now all the rest of them are like, oh no, we don't have any kind of gigs we can do now.
Yeah, no, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, but that's the thing; it shouldn't be because it is a different kind of dwarves. They aren't the same as human dwarves. But anyway, so the release date was September 8th, 2003 for Tiptoes. We're so close to its 20-year anniversary. Michael. We're just slightly after it. So yeah, it's good with that accurate for this movie. The running time, by the way, is 150 minutes, which is which is the director's cut, but the theatrical version, I believe, was only 90 minutes. And yeah, we do not have a budget or a box office for you to guess. So
don't we?
No, that is not on here. I imagine if I had to guess, because I normally don't, I'd say this movie probably cost around $10 million. That's what I'd guess. Yeah, and maybe even less than that, because there's not a lot of like sets actually.
What about the CGI?
Oh yeah, this is when they digitally edit out Gary Oldman's legs when he's walking in his shoes. Jesus Christ. Yeah, 10 million, maybe maybe like 5 million, and probably I have no idea for the box office. Who the fuck knows? Yeah, that's pretty unknowable. Maybe around the same. Anyway, Michael, did you like Tiptoes?
No. Obviously there is let's be honest, we never went into expecting, like, I guess it was a question of like how entertaining is it as like in terms of being a so bad it's good movie. And I think like the big thing that does count against this is that the premise is the funniest part, and once you actually get into what's in the movie, there are good moments and there are like funny lines. I would say, I mean, compare this to, obviously we just reviewed, what's it called, Radio. Radio was like funny throughout with how ridiculous and stupid it was. This movie, I don't know if it ever gets funnier than just the premise, the fact that you do have Gary Oldman. But having said that, I mean, it's still, so yeah, obviously it's not a good movie. I probably wouldn't massively, like, I think in terms of the so bad it's good movies we've done, it's probably not that great.
Yeah. So obviously it's not a good movie, but we can still like the movie and appreciate it if it's so bad it's good. And that's what you were getting at there. Is it so bad it's good? And not really. Like, what is fun throughout is seeing Gary Oldman like try to pretend to be a dwarf. Yeah. Like seeing him try to fit into the clothes and the prosthetics. You know, having him like have a large like I don't know, like they try to make it so his like butt is very big and his legs are very big as well. Because that would make more sense, I guess, in terms of like how his body would look. But yeah, it just like you can tell throughout the movie he's just got like a massive fucking back compared to like Peter Dinklage because he's a normal sized person.
Yes.
So that's funny to see, and it's funny to see him walk and imagine him just like walking with shoes in his knees. You know, like this serious actor doing that. Again, we'll go into that later and all the implications of that. But yeah, so that is kind of fun throughout. But like the movie itself, it's got some funny lines of dialogue. When I think Kate Beckinsale says, "Did you ever have a circle jerk with the little people?" Yes.
In fact, I think I like their melodramatic pillow talk. But I think like the one I like is when just like out of the blue, Matthew McConaughey's like, it's like such a direct thing. He's like, "You're not trying to make some kind of weird political point, are you?"
Yeah.
And it's like just like so funny. Like I love the idea of someone saying that.
Yeah.
Like about a baby.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so I think this movie has some good moments throughout, but like the core of the movie just isn't that hilarious, I'd say. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's bad. I would not say it's so bad it's good, really, because yeah, the plot it's like a romance drama. It's like a dramatic romance, mainly featuring two people who are like normal sized.
Yes.
So yeah, it can't really be so bad it's good.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say actually, if it was little people, like it would be so bad it's good in terms of it being funny. But it's just like if it was Gary Oldman who was playing a much larger role, in the movie rather than appearing, once in a while. Yeah. To be fair, he appears a lot towards the end of the movie, of course. But yeah, then that would be better. But yeah, there's a lot of scenes of, like you said, a lot of melodramatic scenes between McConaughey and Beckinsale just arguing about their baby or their marriage. So that's not really that fun, is it?
Yeah, what I find interesting is actually like the premise isn't so bad, and it's like you've got a family of little people because and there's one guy who is typical human size. Human size makes sense. Okay, whatever. Let's just. I think I'm just gonna stick with saying what you said, which is normal sized.
Yeah, you could say normal size or average size.
Yes, average size. That's a good thing. So you got a guy who's average size, even though he's from a little person family. That's like not a terrible premise, and you could either go like you could go kind of a sort of goofy feel good comedy about that, or you could go for like a serious drama about it. I feel like this film almost kind of like another funny thing about this film is it almost feels like it's going. Like it's flip-flopping between being like a serious drama and being like a kind of goofy comedy.
Well, that's because of the Peter Dinklage character and his romance with Patricia Arquette, which are like this character Peter Dinklage plays is French. He's meant to be ridiculous. He's meant to be the comic relief. And I actually enjoyed those scenes with him because it's just like fun, and the rest of the movie is kind of boring.
Did you like that he was a Marxist?
Yeah, he's a Marxista. He wants to shoot all the Congress, which honestly he's right.
Yeah,
absolutely
based.
do that. Based French Pete Dinklage from Tiptoes. Anyway, let's get into the movie, Michael. So, the film's plot revolves around an average-sized man, McConaughey, who struggles with revealing to. Imagine if McConaughey was walking around in his knees.
Oh wow!
That would be great casting. Anyway, revealing it to his pregnant fiancée, Beckinsale, that his entire family are little people, as he worries that their unborn child may be born with dwarfism. Lisa Nesselson, which is a really weird surname.
Yeah.
She described the film as an honourable failure. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I like this. Summary that comes up short in many departments.
Short.
No, but that's the thing. The movie is short.
It is, yes. So, because obviously you mentioned it was cut.
It's only 90 minutes. That's the version we saw. The director's version is a lot longer. It's an hour longer. We only saw the 90-minute version, and it just kind of ends quite abruptly. You expect there to be another act, another 20 minutes when Matthew McConaughey's character recovers and gets past his issues with being from a family of dwarves, but that just does not happen.
I was sat there thinking, I wonder what they would have done with, no matter what. I mean, people talk about studio meddling. I am 100% okay with not seeing the hour and 50-minute cut of this film.
Well, no, it wasn't an hour.
Sorry, an hour and 50. Sorry, what was it? It was 150 minutes or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
So you know what that is?
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 30. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. An hour longer, like I said. So yes. It's a hell of a lot longer, but I wouldn't mind just an extra 20 minutes just to see what, because it just ends so abruptly, and it's not that much longer. I was I'm not into the movie, but I was like, okay, let's see what happens with McConaughey's character. Let's see those scenes where he comes to terms with, who he is and the fact that, yeah, he is kind of a dwarf, even though he's not really a dwarf or whatever the fuck he has to work past. And the movie just doesn't do that. So it's I was kind of with you. I'm kind of glad the movie ended, but at the same time, I was like, well, there should be an extra 20 minutes here. But whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the thing. It comes up short in many departments. That's true. And I think you could potentially, with the premise, like you say, make a good movie out of this. But this just, it's all over the place, really, with what it wants to be. And also, I think the conflict is not very well done. And I think they should have honestly focused more on McConaughey as a character, to be honest. Stephen is the character's name. They should have focused more on him. And made the movie about him rather than just in general a wider look at little people. Which is kind of what this movie does. So, but Michael, what is interesting is the background to this movie. Do you know about it?
No, or I don't think so.
Okay, well, Matthew Bright conceived the film when he was 18 as a raucous comedy about little people fucking each other, which
wow.
is quite a difference to this movie. So. The film debuted in a 150-minute director's cut at the Harry Knowles Butt-Nummathon Festival. Have you ever been to that festival?
That sounds like it sounded like you said butt-nummathon.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
like a butt. That sounds not. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it, and it sounds weird.
I think the idea is you sit down for so long your butt becomes numb.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that's a better meaning of it.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that is the meaning, yeah.
Yes.
So Bright was fired from the film during post-production and subsequently had his screenwriting credit removed after the film was re-edited without his involvement. I mean, great job screenwriting. Have you ever had a circle jerk with little people?
Yeah, I can't believe he didn't get credited for that masterpiece.
No, he asked to be discredited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the movie was so bad. Because it ruined his vision,
Yes.
The studio meddled with it too much. And to be fair, they might have. It might be a much worse movie. But I kind of doubt that. Anyway, first, okay, Michael, have a guess what the first issues between Bright and the producers were. What was the first issue?
Was it maybe over the casting of Gary Oldman?
No.
Okay.
No, they would have been very happy with that.
Was it that they didn't want it to be an R rating or something?
No.
Okay, I'm just trying to think obvious things it could be.
It's not obvious, I'll tell you. It's about Kate Beckinsale.
Oh.
So the scene where Kate Beckinsale goes to visit Stephen's family for the first time.
Yes.
So she agreed to start in the film for scale, so that's less pay, if she would be allowed to wear her lucky hat during filming, and Bright agreed.
Okay, that sounds. And wait, did the studio not like that?
So, on her first day filming, the producers demanding that Bright tell her to remove the hat, and Bright refused, as this was the only reason she was in the film, for a low salary. So, yeah, no, it's that scene. The first scene they did must have been the scene where they're at his parents' house, Stephen's
Yes,
parents' house, and she's wearing that stupid black hat, if you recall.
I do remember that.
Yeah. And that was the first argument between Bright and the producers, and arguments persisted during filming. So that's just funny. There's so many interesting things about this movie. So after turning in his director's cut, Bright was fired from the film. The film was re-edited without Bright's involvement. Bright attempted to have his name removed from the film, but while he was allowed to remove his screenwriting credits, replacing it with the alias Bill Wiener. Isn't that funny?
That is quite funny.
Yeah, hilarious. He could not remove his directing credit. That I just want to know what the original cut of the film was, because of course we've had cases where people present their film to the studio aren't happy, they want to cut it down. In this case, massively, take a fucking hour out of it. It's like was this the original like Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking about. Also, like, of course, there's a Josh Trank's Fantastic Four. And I only bring that up because, like, I feel like a general thing is that with these films, as much people complain about studio meddling, the trend seems to be that it's never the case that there was a fantastic film left on the cutting room floor. Like, I'm not aware of any example. I'm aware of like studio meddling in pre-production, like obviously things like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 being ruined because the studio wanted more villains. But I can't think of any example of a film where there is a credible kind of case that maybe, I don't know, I was going to say I think like the original Blade Runner cut wasn't as good, so maybe that's an example. But I feel like usually like you don't have a situation where there's like a terrible first cut and then like the director's cut is much better.
I think there is a difference between like a first cut and then like a second cut someone else takes a look at it compared to like the studio. But I do think like Zack Snyder's Justice League was a fair bit better than the 2017 version. Yeah. So that right there is, an example of like, oh yeah, like the studio kind of ruined their own movie because they wanted it to be under 2 hours. But whatever. The point is that I would be interested to know why this movie was so. Well, firstly, it was 2.5 hours. That's a long fucking movie. But yeah, why did the studio not like it? Was it too funny? Was it there was too many raunchy comedy scenes with Peter Dinklage? Was it too dramatic? I kind of doubt that. I don't know.
It might have just been too long, but
the thing is, Peter Dinklage said it was like beautiful. The original
yes, I think I did see that.
Yeah, so who knows anyway. But at the 2004 Sundance Film Festival, the 90-minute version screened, and Bright basically criticised the film and lambasted the producers for re-editing his film, leading them to drag him off stage, which is incredible. I wish I could see that.
I'm listening intently. I find this an interesting story. If I sound quiet, it's just because I'm so interested. Like, yeah, I mean, they dragged him off stage. So I guess, like, I was trying to picture it in my head. So basically, in my head, like, he gets up, like often, like after a film, the director comes out and he's just like, yeah, this is shit, and I blame the studio.
Yeah, it would have been something like that. It's like, they ruined my movie. This was going to be really good. That was a piece of shit. It's their fault. Subsequently, Bright would not ever direct another film. He later said that the film's failure hurt his career, which is understandable. It was a bad movie, and he pissed off a load of producers.
Yes.
So yeah. No, I mean, again, around this time, we talked about Gigli. I Am Sam came out in 2001. I love referencing that movie. Fucking Radio. Just all these movies, and this is another one featuring people who are like marginalized in some way, and there's just really shitty movies about them. Whether they have a mental disability, like a physical disability, like dwarfism. I guess that counts as a disability, right?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I guess so, because obviously,
they face physical issues from it.
Yeah, there's a load of issues that come with obviously growing up and so on, which of course this movie goes into detail about, because that's, part of the conflict. Yeah, it's a case of like, just don't make a shitty like light-hearted movie about like I guess somebody with mental or physical issues in the early 2000s.
Yes.
And then if that happens, you might lose your career.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Because I mean, the thing is, like, with this film, it didn't feel as like Oscar baity as the Radio one. Like, Radio one felt 100% like, just like, oh, we've got to make this movie because it's going to be a real feel good movie and everyone's going to love it and blah blah blah. Whereas this movie just feels like I don't even know what they had going on. Like, this movie almost feels like I guess the thing is, this film doesn't feel as cynical because it's almost like so bizarre that you can't even be like, oh, this is definitely what they were going for.
Yeah,
Whereas with like Radio, you're like, you know what they were trying to do, and it makes it like more cringe.
yeah. So Dinkford said the director's cut of the film was gorgeous, but criticized the producer's cut, calling it a rom-com with dwarves. Again, I don't know what. So he seems to imply that the director's cut was more serious and perhaps was more Oscar baity. And certainly Gary Oldman's role would kind of support that. But like, I can't imagine how it would get more like serious, and like how this was like a rom-com with dwarves, but the director's cut somehow wasn't a rom-com with dwarves. Like, I'd be, who cares? It's Tiptoes. Yeah. It's a Tiptoes fucking director's cut that no one is going to care about. But damn, it's kind of intriguing,
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. Like, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to watch this, but I'd like someone else to watch it, and then just, I'd watch one of those like YouTube videos that's just like kind of explaining the differences. Even though that YouTube video will probably never be made, because again, who cares? But yeah.
The director's cut hasn't been released.
No, yeah, sorry, yeah. So I'm just saying, if it were out, I wouldn't watch it.
I see. No, that makes sense. So yeah, let's get into this script, Michael. So let's get into Tiptoes. Stephen happens to be the only average-sized person in a family of dwarves, including his twin brother Rolf. The thing is, the movie starts off with him almost getting a blowjob from Kate Beckinsale.
Yes.
It's just a weird way to start the movie. Maybe this was from the first draft, because Matthew Bright wanted it to be like a what did he describe it as? I'm just looking it up here. A raucous comedy about little people fucking. But this, of course, is Matthew McConaughey and Kate Beckinsale, and they're not little. But maybe that was going to set the tone for the movie, and that was in the first draft, and he just kept it in there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case. But that's the thing. It's not really played for laughs, though. It's not really that comedic moment. But I was surprised when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, fucking hell, right? This is how it's starting. Kate Beckinsale, Michael. Do you know what job she does?
Oh, you mean in the film?
Yeah. No, in general. What is she? Is she an actor?
She is an actor.
Wow, good guess.
No, so I mean, she's a painter in the film, isn't she?
Yes. Which do we ever see her paint?
We see her think about painting and then almost give a blowjob. Which is kind of, I guess we're seeing how she makes her money in the painting industry.
The thing is, the movie calls her an independent woman, but she doesn't seem that independent. Like, oh, she's a painter, great. We never actually see her do any work, but whatever. Anyway, so Matthew McConaughey, he goes to this convention for little people, right? And it's called the Little People's Defense League, because he's going to see his family. But I can't just say, I don't think little people would be good at defending much, honestly,
Well, like they've got guns. Like, guns are a great force equalizer nowadays. Although obviously, I know I'm sounding like Peter Dinklage's character by saying that.
Yeah,
but
you are.
like obviously, physically, they do have a disadvantage. Also, numerically, there's not so many of them.
Yes,
but, they can use their words.
The little people. Yeah, I just love the Little People Defense League. It's like, well, yeah, they could have chose something a bit better, because my mind when I hear that, it goes to like, okay, like a bunch of little people defending something, and I'm like, yeah, wouldn't be the best at defending whatever they are. And yeah, like I did actually, you brought up Peter Dinklage's character, saying like they should like fucking start a revolution with guns. Imagine a bunch of little people attacking the Capitol.
Yes,
like on January
6th. Yeah,
wouldn't that be just very funny?
Yeah, yeah. Like, it would be. Like, again, it would feel kind of fantastical.
Okay.
It has to be said.
So this movie, of course, calls them little people, but my question is, Michael, why not call them midgets, which is an offensive term? Why is that term offensive?
It annoys me because it was just arbitrarily decided it would be offensive.
That seems like it's the case, yes.
Yeah, like there's no reason why it's considered offensive more so than anything else. It's just so that the woke loony left can make heroes like us seem like we've got something wrong in our attitudes.
If you're a marginalized group, you have to have a word that only you can call other people who are the same as you.
Yes.
Of course, the most famous example is the N-word. But of course, black people didn't invent that word, but they took ownership of it, and it seems like the little people community have done the same with the word midget. Have you ever seen the SNL clips of Bill Hader as Stefan?
I don't think so.
You've never? Do you know who Bill Hader is, right?
I know who Bill Hader is. He's the guy with the weird face. He kind of looks like he's always really serious. He looks a little bit like Agent Smith from The Matrix. Yeah. Oh, he's got a massive forehead. I just looked him up.
Yeah.
Bill Hader is Stefan.
Yeah. Do you know he was on SNL?
Oh wait, okay, so yeah, he's got the weird hair,
Yes.
like with the fringe.
Yes. Have you ever seen this character?
I don't think I've seen the character. So I've seen like this image, I've seen this picture, of this character. But I don't think I've ever seen like a clip of him
Yeah.
saying anything.
Well, basically, he used to do this joke, which is like New York's hottest club is, and he used to describe like a load of weird things like that happen in a New York club, basically. I'll show you an example, but why I bring it up is he always used to make a joke about midgets, and the thing is, Bill Hader in this explanation as Stefan, he's reading off the this prompt cards or whatever it is for the first time, so he doesn't know what he's about to say. And he always made jokes about midgets, which is what he referred to them as. So I'll try and get a clip up here.
Bok Choy. Stefan, who is DJ Baby Bok Choy? He's a giant 300-pound Chinese baby who wears tinted aviator glasses and he spins records with his little ravioli hands. Stefan, first of all, no, you're doing great.
We'll just go into the midget bit.
But I need you, to help me out, or at least meet me halfway, because I need normal places, and specifically places where families can go.
Is that Steph Myers?
So really, you have
It
the
is,
whole city
yes.
to play with. New York City.
Yeah.
This is when he was back on
If you
SNL.
could just, tell us some places that would be appropriate for, say, like moms, dads, kids. And, if there are any places for people like that. Yes. New York's hottest club is Slash. This place has everything. Glass, steam, bear traps, and just when you think the fun is over, knock, knock, who's there? It's Black George Washington. All that in a party room filled with human bath mats.
There we go.
What is a human bath mat? It's that thing of when, like, midgets have dreadlocks and they lay face down on the floor. Try to wrap this up, Stefan.
Okay, so that I only bring that up because that was, I guess, the famous joke from, well, it was, that character is quite famous. We always used to say like a human something, like a human fire hydrant, I think was one of them, and it's like it's a midget doing something, and that was happening back only 10 years ago, Michael, and that was allowed on primetime TV. Now it's offensive to say midget. In fact, I think he came back, Bill Hader, as Stefan years later, and said little people instead. And there was a reference to the fact that, we can't say that word anymore. So yeah, I don't know. So we haven't, I guess, cracked the case as why it's offensive, right?
No, I don't know. Although, I will say this, just while we're talking about midgets, because I don't know where else I'm going to mention this. God. Were we going to talk about the random girlfriend character, like Gary Oldman's girlfriend character?
I was going to mention it, but go on.
Okay, basically, so I was looking at her and I was thinking, she, like, for some reason I was just thinking, hold on, is she like, I think she maybe reminded me of an actress or something. Oh wait, okay, so when you see where I'm going with this, it's going to sound very suspicious, but basically, essentially what I'm going to get to is that I thought she might have been a full-sized, an average heighted person also playing a little person. So I was like, I've got to find this out. So I looked it up, and it turns out, no, she is indeed a short person, a little person. But also, when you look her up, it doesn't say she's an actress. It says she's an erotic, porn actress. Now, the reason why I say, she reminds me of, no, don't, I mean, that was not it.
Is this going to be on the next quiz?
It was not it. But that's just the reason why I ended up looking her up. And the real story here, although I will say, just for record, and I think everyone would agree with this, she's a perfectly good-looking woman. I think we can all agree with that. I don't have any sort of fetishistic enthusiasm for little people. That's me.
Great.
So I personally wouldn't consume her work. But she's a fine-looking woman. But I don't know about her name because her porn name is Bridget Powers. Now you might notice something about the word Bridget. And with that said, you won't be surprised to realize that she's also credited as Bridget the Midget. So I was looking at her Wikipedia page and I was like, Bridget Powers is a porn star. She stars in erotic little people themed content, and she's often credited as Bridget the Midget.
That's very funny. Bridget, see again, like. So why is it offensive to say
porn does it? How can it be offensive?
Yeah, exactly. Like porn is like the paradigm of like civil civil society. No, that's the thing. It is, I guess, kind of offensive, but like little people also sounds offensive. Oh, you're just a little person. You're not even a
exactly.
person.
Like there's no great way around it, because obviously, and then dwarf. I mean, that has like weird fantasy connotations.
Yeah, but so again, it's just like, well, pick one, I guess, that you find offensive. Okay, it's midget, right? We can't say that. Fine. But yeah, Bridget the midget. That's great. Well done. Good find, Michael. Good find.
Thank
you. Anyway, so Stephen has a brother who suffers from dwarfism, of course. This Matthew McConaughey's character has a brother, and it's played by Gary Oldman, who is hanging out with French Peter Dinklage for some reason.
Yes.
They pick up Patricia Arquette with dreadlocks. Of course they do. And later on, Peter Dinklage has dreadlocks, by the way. So there you go. That's all good stuff. And they go to this convention, and look, the thing is, it's quite easy to see the issues with the casting of Gary Oldman right away, mainly because he's not a little person. So
Yes.
we're going to get into this now. So the film attracted controversy for the casting of non-dwarf actor Gary Oldman as a dwarf. Oldman, I like this from Wikipedia, Oldman is also 11 years older than McConaughey, despite playing his twin brother. And that right there is kind of funny. Like Wikipedia would include that in the controversy. It's like, oh, he's not a dwarf, but he's playing a dwarf, and he's 11 years older than his supposed twin brother. Disgraceful.
Yeah, like that's one of those things is worse than the other.
Yeah, a lot worse. And Gary Oldman's portrayal of a dwarf was achieved through Oldman, like we said before, walking on his knees, and various prosthetics designed to hide his actual legs, as well as a double. And at one point, they digitally edit out his legs.
Wow.
Of course, yes, which is great. The thing is, you can tell he is walking on his knees, because here's the thing, Michael. Me and you recognise Gary Oldman. We know he's not a little person. But even if you didn't know that, surely, you didn't know who Gary Oldman was. But surely, because of his proportions, it would be obvious that this guy, this actor, doesn't have dwarfism. Like, it's very bad. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Like, it's not convincing. There's kind of like, what do they say? There's like the question of, is it like appropriation? But then there's also just the fact that, independent of anything else, it's not convincing, and it makes the film like it's a ridiculous thing in the film. And again, of course, it makes the idea of, if it was supposed to be serious, you'd kind of be like, well, how can they even go for that when it's so obviously stupid and like unconvincing?
Well, the thing is, so not only does it not work, but it's also offensive. So the casting of Oldman as an individual with dwarfism was considered offensive to little people. Imagine my shock.
Yes.
With Nathan Rabin comparing this casting to blackface. Yes, and I don't think that's unreasonable, to be honest. Co-star Peter Dinklage defended the casting, by the way, but Dinklage was in the movie, so I don't know if his opinion holds much weight. But anyway, he is a little person, Dinklage, so you could say, well, his view matters more than my view or anyone else's view. But I do think the blackface comparison is kind of right. It's not like Dinklage, by the way, is the only little person acting. You don't need Gary Oldman. You could have actually got a little person to play him. You know what, Michael, I'm going to compare it to? It's once again like Tropic Thunder, okay? Now, I'm not going to
go full dwarf.
You never go full dwarf. Well, I'm going to talk about something kind of different because, in the past few weeks, while talking about Geely and talking about radio, I've referenced Robert Downey Jr.'s character's retard speech, where he says, "You never go full retard." But I'm going to talk about his actual character. Do you know his actual character from the movie, Robert Downey Jr.?
I don't remember his name, but I've seen the movie.
Well, do you remember what type of character who the character he plays is?
Robert Downey Jr. Well, isn't he like, his whole thing is he's like a really serious method actor?
Yes, exactly. He's a serious method actor. Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder plays a serious Oscar-winning actor who is, of course, a white guy like Downey Jr., whose skin has been surgically changed to be black, so he can basically play black roles. He's like a 3-time Oscar winner, this incredible method actor, and like he's had surgery to go from white so he's now black. Of course, it's a parody. This character in Tropic Thunder of actors who believe they can play any role, even if they look nothing like that person. And of course, mainly that revolves around ethnicity. Downey Jr. looks nothing like a black person, but his character is like, no, I can play a black person. I can play like Martin Luther King or whatever. So I'm going to surgically change my skin to be black. So yeah, it's a parody of these type of actors. And of course, plenty of black actors exist. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s character didn't need to be black, but he's this great actor and he has this massive ego. So he's like, I can play anything. And Gary Oldman is like this in this movie. Like, he is not needed in this role. And it is quite offensive. Just like Robert Downey Jr.'s character in Tropic Thunder, at least in that movie in Tropic Thunder, Downey Jr.'s character, like, he actually, he's, of course it's blackface, but he actually, like, he doesn't look like fake black,
Yeah.
Like, he's, I guess if you know who Downey Jr. is, you can, and you look up close, you're like, oh yeah, that's a guy in blackface. But, like, it's not instantly recognizable. Yeah. But that's the thing, Gary Oldman, that is the case, and it's not a parody, and it looks so fake. It's so bad. So yeah, even like the parody that came out 5 years later, it's like if Downey Jr.'s like in that movie, like his character's skin wasn't properly done, and he still had a bit of white, around his skin. His skin wasn't completely black. That's what it would be like.
Well,
so,
it's kind of like how obviously, I mean, you compared to the blackface. Obviously, with traditional blackface, they literally don't look like black people.
Oh yeah, no, obviously, yeah. Traditional blackface is meant to be offensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I mean, in terms of obviously it's offensive. In terms of like why they did it, I assume it's literally because there is no, and that's why I kind of said, it's to this movie. I think it hurts the movie that Peter Dinklage wasn't considered a box office draw at this time. Like, I guess at this point he was established enough that people are like, oh yeah, if we want like a serious actor, we can get Peter Dinklage. But you couldn't like have a trailer like starring Peter Dinklage. So I guess they were like, we've got to have two lead people, and one of those people can't be Peter Dinklage because nobody's heard of Peter Dinklage. So we need to have two box office draws starring, and there is no little person box office draw. So they're like, well, we'll just have to have Gary Oldman be one of the little people.
Gary Oldman in a role of a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's like the other aspect of it. They were like, well,
that's why I
it
referenced before,
increases
Michael,
the appeal.
Because it's Oscar baity,
Yeah.
So wow, Gary Oldman's playing a dwarf. Oh wow, what an interesting casting choice, even though it's fucking ridiculous. And that's the thing, you're right, but by the way, I believe you are absolutely right. So they were calling up agents of serious method actors around Hollywood, and they were like, yeah, we need some actor to to pretend to be a dwarf, to walk around and put his knees in his shoes. And we need for him to do that. Anyone want to do this? And Gary Oldman was like, yeah, I'll do that because I'm such a good actor. I can pull it off. And like, he gives a good performance, but of course he can't pull it off because he's not a dwarf.
Yeah.
And even like do you remember near the end of the movie when he's in a turtleneck? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when they're out in the woods and he's wearing like this green turtleneck, and it looks so bad. It's like he can't fit in it because it's meant to be, a turtleneck for a little person, but he's got a normal sized body, so it's just like, it's so funny that he can't fit in it, and it's so bad. Like, you compare his like build to Peter Dinklage, who's sitting right next to him. It's fucking insane, the difference. I think that's where it's.
Do you think maybe what happened is they saw Lord of the Rings and they're like, wow, look at how impressive it is that they made these actors look like hobbits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. You need a bit more effort than that. A bit more effort than Gary Oldman just walking around in his with knees in his shoes. Anyway, by the way, Oldman was included in BBC critics Mark Commode's Great Acting in Bad Films in 2012. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a bad performance, like, from him. Like, his line deliveries are good. I think he does the job well. But yeah, it's just like, it's ridiculous that he is meant to be a dwarf. Obviously, and that's the point. So yeah. Anyway, shall we? Anything more to say in Gary Oldman, Michael?
No.
I mean, that was.
Let me just make sure. Nope. Yeah.
That was the draw for me. Gary Oldman, as like that. That's what I think about when I think about this movie. And just like, because you referenced it, didn't you, Michael? How you, as a kid, you used to like put shoes in your knees and walk around. Yeah, you remember doing that, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing that that's
happening. Someone's like, yeah, we can do that for a movie.
Yeah, just insane. So anyway, from Wikipedia now, this is Michael. So, Carol, a talented painter and independent woman, there you go,
yes,
falls in love with Stephen without knowing much about him other than he is the perfect man, apparently. But when Carol finds herself pregnant, it forces Stephen to expose his darkest secrets, his family. And that from Wikipedia is very funny. like his darkest secret. His family's full of dwarves.
Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, that's the thing we talked about. It's an interesting dilemma. Because he's like, oh, I don't want to tell her because he should of course tell her. That's obviously the right thing, but you can understand why he's not completely fine with it. And that would be his character arc throughout the movie, which I thought they were going to finish, which they don't do well up until that point. But it's about Matthew McConaughey coming to terms accepting that he is a dwarf. But yeah, he's a dwarf. He is part of a dwarf family, but he doesn't do that, of course. But yeah, the thing is, Wikipedia does say that Carol, basically Stephen exposes his darkest secret, but it's Gary Oldman who exposes it to Carol, right?
Yeah,
not Stephen.
That's a good point. Yeah,
Gary Oldman goes over to his house after he gets in a fight with remember the Palestinian guy?
Arari or whatever.
He'd been the victim of an Israeli war crime.
Yes.
And so it's such a weird movie. Like they added that character in there, and why did he get kicked out of the Gaza Strip? Like, why did that need to be the case? I'm not sure, but there you go. And that was what was that actress called, Michael?
Bridget Powers, or also known as Bridget the Midget.
Yeah, and she hits the oppressed Palestinian guy with a fucking, what is it, like a radio? Is that what she hits him with?
Yes, yeah, I think it's something like that.
Yeah, did you enjoy that scene? I mean, that was just...
I thought it was pretty entertaining, yes.
One of those entertaining scenes, one of the few entertaining scenes in this movie. So Carol goes to Stephen's firefighter training program and confronts him. She says, were you going to tell me your family were all midgets? That's her words.
Yes.
And Stephen says, I was, but the thing is, he hadn't done it, so of course he was scared somewhat, clearly. And, then Carol brings up the fact that their baby could be a midget, which is her words again. And Stephen says, why does that matter? Why does that matter, Michael? But the thing is, it clearly does matter. Otherwise, why would he not tell her? So it clearly matters. Like, either he's worried about their kid being a dwarf, or more likely, since Carol wants to be a mother, Stephen is worried that if he tells her about his, family's dwarfism, she will understand there's a chance the child could be a dwarf because it's, it's a genetic disease, like she said, and therefore Stephen is thinking if she understands that, then she might not want to marry him. Would you think that's fair? Yeah. So the fact that he says, why does it matter, is absurd. Oh, well, perhaps it's not absurd that Stephen says it, because of course people do lie, characters do lie in movies, and he's masking his feelings, but yeah, Carol just doesn't call him out on it. Like, he's been lying to her. Basically, that's what's been the case, and that's why he was so afraid about the baby. And, she just doesn't care, like, she doesn't go like, oh yeah, that's why you never told me. Yeah, there's nothing like that. And then he has the gall to say, well, what does it matter if the baby's a dwarf? It's like, if I was fucking Carol, Kate Beckinsale's character.
He's gaslighting her.
That's exactly what he's doing, Michael. I would go, what do you mean? What do you mean? What does it matter? That's the whole reason you didn't tell me. It's ridiculous, Michael. Absurd. There's a great chance for melodrama, and the movie doesn't take it. You set it up and then you don't pay it off. Where's the melodrama there? So yeah, he's clearly worried about something. But then by the end of the conversation, they switch positions. Like, Carol seemingly is concerned about...
Yes, yeah.
Sure, sorry, she's not concerned about the kid being a midget, which is her words again. And is then like, so what? And then Stephen, who was like, what does it matter if the kid's a dwarf, implies it's not an easy choice to make, which is true. And he even says, well, we could go for adoption like that. Like,
yes.
He's just casually throwing out the idea of abortion after like 2 minutes earlier.
I like how he's taking it for granted, just like, yeah.
Yeah, of course that's ridiculous, but also it's the hypocrisy. Like 2 minutes earlier, he was like, yeah, what does it matter? And now he's like, yeah, we could always abort it. It's like, why? Like you said, Michael, it's gaslighting. When is Carol going to call out this gaslighting? That's what I want to see, and she doesn't do that, But anyway, so Carol basically, she comes to terms, would you say, with having a little person as a child, like, quite quickly? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I would. I think that's a very fair description. Basically, it's not really about her conflict quite soon, like after a very short while.
Yeah, and that's fine, but it's like it happens rather quickly. And the overall conflict in the movie is about, of course, Stephen's character getting to grips with it. But yeah, it was at this point I was wondering what the conflict in the movie was, because she seems fine with it. And then we finally get somewhere with Stephen getting called out by his brother for hiding that his family were dwarfs. I was like, yes, finally he's getting called out. It's like, Gary Oldman's like, what, you ashamed of us? And it's like, yes, finally. But it's like resolved 5 minutes later, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, like basically a lot of I don't know, I think this movie just doesn't really commit to a like interpersonal through line in terms of the conflict. It's
Yeah,
just kind of all over the place.
yeah, and like this, it's weird because it's set up to be like we're going to use that word again, a melodramatic movie. There's plenty of
Yeah.
moments where you think, oh yeah, this could be like an opportunity for some melodramatic moments, and there's opportunities for a character arc overall with Matthew McConaughey, and the movie like just doesn't take those moments, or it like resolves those moments 5 minutes later. Like 5 minutes later, like Gary Oldman at first is like, "You are you ashamed of us?" And Matthew McConaughey's like, "No, shut the fuck up. You're full of shit, man." Something like that. And then 5 minutes
Yes.
later, "Hey, do you want to come home? We'll drive you home in our car. Come on, all is forgiven." It's like, well, you've missed a chance to, come on, let's have some drama. Let's have the brothers hating each other for a while, and it really, they don't resolve things until later in the movie. But nope, it's all okay. 5 minutes later, I do enjoy Peter Dinklage doing his comic relief thing with the weird French guy stuff. He's a Marxist as well, and he wants to overthrow the normal sized bourgeoisie. That's funny.
Yes.
I like it. See, you said those moments were out of place, right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't work with like, I don't know if I'd say they're out of place exactly. I mean, they wouldn't work if you were trying to be serious. But
Yes.
then this film is kind of like, I would say it's almost like everything's out of place because it's almost like 50-50. So it's kind of like either the comedic moments are out of place or the serious moments are out of place.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. Yeah, and that's the thing. At least those moments are kind of fun, So
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, it's okay. Well, let's have Peter Dinklage be a weird French guy, and let's have Sally Rolfe's girlfriend getting banged by this famous celebrity.
Yeah.
Which is funny because and they're having sex in a room with which is just windows.
Yeah.
So anyone can see inside. So
They're
yeah,
exhibitionists.
exactly. Yeah, let's not act like Bridget the midget didn't want to get caught. Anyway, they invite Carol's parents around, and so they don't tell Carol's parents about the fact that their son-in-law's family is little people. And I wouldn't care if I was them, Michael, but I'd like to be told, because it is unusual, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, imagine you just went round like to see some family, and it's like, oh yeah, they're all little people. It's like, oh yeah, and they're going to be marrying your kid. It's like, oh wow, okay, well this is a bit weird. You could have told us,
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's okay to be surprised.
Yeah. I just be like, okay, wow, okay, yeah, might have mentioned that. So yeah, there is of course, joke about Carol's parents being nervous about bringing, something up, but it's that they want a Jewish wedding, Michael.
Yes, yeah, it was a good subversion. Like, I didn't know how to feel about that because on the one hand, I was thinking like, oh, I can't really be bothered with like kind of cookie cutter like drama, and like that's kind of what I was expecting to be, just like, oh, they don't approve and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I just can't be bothered. So
Yeah.
I was almost like, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, no, it was weird. But yeah, I guess that's the joke. And yeah, they have a Jewish wedding, and Matthew McConaughey is in a yarmulke, which is great. And yeah, I don't know what Peter Dinklage's character is doing there. The movie implies they're like off to the side, him and Patricia Arquette, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what their relationship. I don't. What is the relationship between Peter Dinklage and Rolf?
I think they're just friends.
Are they just friends that hang out together in the same cabin?
I think so. I think it's really that simple.
So Gary Oldman is a syndicated writer, who writes for like the Chicago Tribune and stuff. Oh yeah. Do you remember? Was it Bridget the midget? She has that line where she says, "I read that article in Harper's about the Republicans."
Oh yeah, well of course that's how people talk.
Yeah. Yes, the Republicans. Yes, just the Republicans in general. What's happening with them? What's going on with the Republicans? Well, yeah, Gary Oldman wrote an article on that. Yeah, so it's just his relationship is never explained, and I guess in the extended version or the director's cut that is explained. But anyway, yeah, it's never explained like where they're going to at the start of the movie, right? Peter Dinklage's character.
Oh yeah, they're just going on like a motorbike journey.
Yeah, which like where did they come from? Where they're going? Who knows? But we do get some conflict then. Stephen is angry that their baby is, of course, a dwarf. And, the thing is, they could have done much more with this character. That's what I've been saying throughout, and I think that's the case. Like, make the movie solely about him, really, and coming to terms with himself, which means less Gary Oldman and probably less Kate Beckinsale in terms of her being a main character.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be better. And because this movie is really about like the world of little people as well. It goes into that a bit, and I don't think that's that would make for the best movie. If it's about him coming to terms with himself and accepting himself and truly accepting his family, because he at one point, of course, shouts he's a dwarf, and then the movie just leaves it at that. And there is no counselling scene, which
yes, that's weird. Yeah, and like he kind of appears later on. He's like, "Oh, I made some progress," and you literally haven't seen him.
yeah, like I thought that's the point. Like they don't do the character arc well up until that point because like there's not the movie doesn't really focus on him that much. Of course, he's like one of the main characters, so there is somewhat a focus on him, but it's not really the overwhelming focus. Like the movie focuses. You know what a plurality is, of course, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, like he's a plurality in the movie, but he's not like a majority in the movie, and that's the difference. You need to make him the majority of the movie about Matthew McConaughey's character arc. So yeah, they don't do it well up until that point, and then they just end it. Like McConaughey's like. So, do you remember the scene where he has the weights next to the crib? By the way.
Yes. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, and just I don't know why that's the case, but yeah. So, of course, at the end, Carol goes to Rolf, and I guess the idea is Stephen. If he was more like his brother, that would be better. That's the message, because of course Stephen leaves, and then Carol kisses his brother, which is a very weird scene, by the way, as well. So,
yeah.
Especially weird as the movie just ends. But yeah, again, the message is accept who you are and you'll be happy, but we don't get to see Matthew McConaughey accept who he is. Like, he's too confused. Like, that's the thing he said. Fucking Kate Beckinsale says, you're too confused. And I'm like, yeah, we've known this for a while now. And the movie just doesn't want to resolve that issue. And the movie just ends and he just leaves the cabin. And it's just very unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, anything else to say on the ending?
No, like, yeah, basically the ending is very abrupt and you're kind of just like, well, I guess that felt kind of pointless in hindsight.
Yeah, man, and then that's it. It's over. So yeah, no character arc resolution for Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, and I guess Kate Beckinsale is now kind of with his dwarf brother.
Yeah, which to be fair, like, works for the kid. I'm sure it's better for the kid to have like, a dwarf brother.
Well, a dwarf father.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, a dwarf father, because then it's like, they can relate more.
Yeah, she says like, but the thing is, she says you can kiss me, which is just like a weird thing to say.
He's like, I'm sorry. Why do you assume I would be interested in you?
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, obviously she likes him because even though he's a dwarf, and he's not like average sized, at least he accepts who he is, right?
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know how does the movie imply that romance has legs? That romance is going to last? I don't know. Like it just again, it's the ending is so abrupt. It's so weird. You do think the movie should continue for another 20 minutes, so we understand what's happening between Gary Oldman and Kate Beckinsale's characters, and we know what's happening with Matthew McConaughey. How he does he just give up, or does he come to terms with himself, get some counselling, and then have a breakthrough, an epiphany, or does he just leave and say no, I can't be the father to this kid, and just goes for good instead of just being in limbo, which he kind of is at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But no, we don't find out. And there you go. There's the end of the movie. So let's conclude now, Michael. Shall you go? Do you want to go first, yeah?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, this movie is, I guess, just kind of just lame. I don't know. Like, it is funny again. Like, obviously, as I said, the premise is funny. That it's funny throughout the movie, seeing the attempts to make him look the way he is or the way he does. But and again, we haven't even entertained the idea that this movie is authentically good in its own right. Although just on that, like the main issue is just that the kind of character conflict is all over the place. It's very inconsistent, tonally as well. Overall, I guess I think I'm gonna have to rate it lower than Radio. I think I'm just gonna rate it like no, I can't remember what I rated it Radio, but I'm gonna rate this a low 2.
Yeah, I think a 2 is fair. I was thinking of giving this like a 1.5, but the fact that Gary Oldman is doing that stupid thing, we didn't even talk about the scenes like where he's sitting on the couch and like they've obviously put fake legs in front of him. Like it's kind of fun to imagine what they had to do to make him look like a dwarf. But yeah, again, it is offensive, and that's why it's funny that like a serious actor would play this role where he's walking around on his knees pretending to be a dwarf. That's very funny. And yeah, I guess that bumps it up from like a 1.5 to a 2. So yeah, I think that's fair. Michael, what are we looking at next week?
Next week, we are looking at Dazed and Confused.
Yes.
Which I think is actually a good movie.
Yes, it's 25-year anniversary. And do you know which actor that movie stars?
It stars one famous... Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, it's
And
actually
Ben Affleck, actually.
yeah, it's 30-year anniversary. I apologize. It came out in 1990. Did I say 25 or 30?
You said you did say 25, I think.
Yeah, I was wrong. Does it star Matthew? It does star Matthew McConaughey, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah, you are right about that.
I don't see him on the cast.
Oh, I can see him on the cast. So clearly, you're just terrible at looking things
Which
up.
characters does he play?
David Wooderson. I reckon he's also on the IMDb.
Oh no,
page.
here he is. Yeah, he's
You
down at the
fool.
bottom. Sorry, yeah. So we'll run that back. So yeah, join us next week for Dazed and Confused, Michael. Who have you been?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke, and thank you for joining us on the trip down memory lane with the 20-year anniversary of Tiptoes. Yeah, see you next week for the 30-year anniversary of Dazed and Confused. Goodbye.
Goodbye.